This week, Rachel Reeves delivered her seismic speech on growth. Just don't call it a reset. Yes, this career-defining speech included some very welcome steps. It was a far world away from that budget that so many thought did so much damage to the United Kingdom's growth potential. It ended the dithering of decades over Heathrow expansion. It revived the promise of the Oxford-Cambridge arc, although now it's going to be rebranded and called the ever so catchy title, the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor. Now, despite the fact that the proposed new road linking Oxford, Milton Keynes and Cambridge will still not be built, that particular piece of infrastructure was actually killed off by Grant Shapps and a number of unhappy Conservative MPs during Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister. But the railway, the Oxford-Cambridge Railway, is getting the big go-ahead sign from the Chancellor. Oxford too will be joining Cambridge in gaining a growth commission for the city. Perhaps we'll see an Oxford New Town alongside Cambridge New Town as new quarters of each city bursting at the seams with growth potential. We know how much lab space is needed in both Oxford and Cambridge if they're going to compete with areas like San Francisco or Boston in the United States. Sadly, however, as an obsessive of the Oxford-Cambridge arc for many years, I've kept tabs on this rail project. So if HS2's £100 million Bat Tunnel annoyed you, just wait until you hear about the East-West Rail Chapel Hill Bat Tunnel. Not another one. Yes, firstly let me explain the area a little. When you hear the word hill, you may instinctively think of a significant elevation. Not in Cambridge, you don't. Having grown up in the area, I can assure you it's flat. Flat as a pancake is the vernacular. There's no way on earth that the mild rolling hills would require a full-blown tunnel dug beneath them, just to enable a standard train to pass over the terrain. It wasn't the case of the old varsity rail line that ran, of course, between Oxford and Cambridge until the beaching cuts of the 1960s. It didn't need a tunnel, so it shouldn't be the case now. To press this point a little further, when at Cambridge, my grandfather was a member of the Gog-Magog Mountain Rescue Society. It was a joke drinking society, given the topography of Cambridge and the surrounding area. If you walk the Gog-Magog Hills just south of Cambridge, you'll barely notice the incline. No one was going to need mountain rescue. So under that mountain rescue name, the students would turn up at a bar and have an excellent session for drinking. Well, an engineering challenge for a train line, Chapel Hill is not. There's even less justification for tunnelling through notoriously flat as a pancake Cambridgeshire than there is tunnelling through the gently rolling Chilterns. Back in 2012, the coalition government increased the amount of eye-wateringly expensive tunnelling along the HS2 route by 55%. Yes, a 55% increase from the original plans in one fell swoop. This wasn't because the tunnels were necessary, this was simply to hide the trains from view. Fresh mitigation measures announced by the government ensured that less than 2 of the 13 miles of the Chilterns HS2 runs through would be at or above surface level. Yes, tunnels are a choice, and far too often the government argues to introduce tunnels when they're not necessary for engineering purposes. Which all brings us back to East-West Rail, the consultation for which launched in November last year, following funding allocated in Rachel Reeves's budget of the previous month. Now, for those of us who poured through the pages of this consultation, it's not until page 308 until Chapel Hill rears its ugly head. Not due to engineering problems in particular, but for 2 reasons alone. Cited in this report, it's the visual impacts of the train line and the impacts on bats. Yes, not people, bats. It's easy to see how this is simply NIMBYism, not in my backyardism, pure and simple. The crossing of Chapel Hill was noted in the consultation as one of the key constraints in this area of the route. The following concerns were raised in response to the consultation. Yes, these concerns were the visual impact on heritage assets, including Chapel Hill and Money Hill, and secondly, impacts on wildlife because of the project, including Barnstable bats and the Everston and Wimpole Woods Special Area of Conservation. Barnstable bats are, of course, the source of the HS2 bat tunnel. A bat once thought to number just 1,500, today, the population is estimated to be 21,600. This thanks to a clever piece of kit called the Sussex Autobat. It mimics bat calls and it found 15 times the number of bats than the bat experts were expecting. But despite this, the Barnstables remain protected by legacy EU law, and those opposed to new infrastructure simply leap upon their furry backs and skinny wings to hold it all up. So the solution proposed by East West Rail to protect these bats that people pretend to be ever so concerned over: a bat flight corridor. Yes, the document itself uses these bizarre words: bat flight corridor, all designed to, quote, minimise disruption to the flight path of the Barbastol bats to the south of Haslingfield. Yes, given the bats, the consultation doesn't even consider the possibility of simply not digging a massive tunnel. Instead, we're offered a delightful and expensive list of options. Option 1 is a cut and cover tunnel, set as the baseline option, so any other option is compared to that as the baseline. The baseline isn't digging no tunnel at all, no, the baseline is a cut and cover tunnel. Well, the second option is a short mined tunnel, the third option is an intermediate mined tunnel, and option 4 is a long mined tunnel. Well, as I say, given the cut and cover tunnel is set at the baseline, no true cost-benefit analysis is carried out. We enjoy page after page of tunnel compared to tunnel. In the end, the document recommends option 3, which pleasingly means that the villagers of Haslingfield, whose houses back onto Church Street, won't have to look at a train half a mile from their back gardens. Oh, and something to do with bats. So there we are. Scratch the surface of a new rail project, and what do we find? Infrastructure for bats. Pointless tunnels, making the project more expensive for no structural reason. And locals who'll be angry at the project despite every expensive element of, quote, visual impact mitigation that the planners have been dumb enough to fall for. We talk endlessly about Britain's infrastructure failures, how expensive it is to build rail or road in this country. But when even the flattest of rail routes needs a tunnel, is it any wonder we can't get things built? Of course, environmental protections do matter, but the Chapel Hill Bat Tunnel isn't about conservation. It's about performative mitigation at an eye-watering cost for a bat that isn't even as rare as we once thought it was. Well done, everyone. Well, the Oxford-Cambridge arc matters to deliver growth to the UK. 3 years ago, when the last government was scaling back this important project, this Silicon Valley for the United Kingdom, I sat down with Stian Westlake, the then CEO of the UK's National Foundation for Innovation and government advisor. Let's listen to what he had to say. There's been a lot of contentious discussion over the Oxford-Cambridge arc. There was a plan for a railway, a plan for a road. The road has been ditched. Has the whole concept of the arc been ditched?
Well, as far as we can see, it's really been put on the back burner. There was a big consultation that finished in October of last year. Since then, it seems to have been deprioritised by the government. And I think that's leaving everyone involved in this project thinking, does the government care about this anymore? It's a real challenge.
Now, lots of people say that this particular project could be the big driver for growth. It could be the big key policy that actually generates a better quality of living for everyone in the country. Why does this particular area have such a potential to grow the economy?
Well, one thing we know, if we look around the world, if we look at Silicon Valley, if we look at Boston in the US, if we look at Israel, is that if you've got lots of smart people doing great research, if you make it easy to build houses and offices near those people, the magic of the free market will do its thing, people will set up businesses, and economic growth will happen. Now, this is fantastic so long as you allow people to build. And one of the tragedies of the UK is we channel lots and lots of public funding into two very beautiful towns, Oxford and Cambridge, surrounded by tight green belts where it is almost impossible to build anything. Now, the ARC is an attempt, it's a sort of second best attempt to say, how do you solve that? By allowing people to build some things in between Oxford and Cambridge, Milton Keynes, Bedford, link it up, as you say, with roads and rail, so that it gets easier for entrepreneurs to set up the things they want to. That's why it's so important.
How does economic growth in Oxford and in Cambridge and in the ARC between them, how does that help the rest of the country?
So, a few things. Firstly, it generates more tax revenue, can provide more investment in public services and so forth. It provides jobs that other people can come and do. And these businesses have supply chains. They create opportunities for suppliers around the country. We know that a lot of these benefits stay in country. So holding back the most potentially productive parts of your country are going to do a disservice not just to those parts, but to everyone.
So if we're looking at this potential rail project, which has not yet been cancelled despite the vociferal opposition of those who live between those two cities, what's the progress here? When are the next points of contention? What are we going to see in reality happen with this project in the near future?
I think we're all waiting for the next announcements from the Department for Levelling Up, who are very important in this. I don't know when those are going to come, but I think the next 2 months could be crucial for this. It will be really valuable to hear in the PM's coming plan for growth a real commitment to saying we're not going to drop this, we're going to do something here.
Well, there we have it. This could be a huge boon to the UK, but the Chancellor needs to go further to make it happen. We need fewer bat tunnels. We need faster infrastructure. We need less expensive rail, and we need more homes. Every new home built in the hyper-productive Oxford-Cambridge ARC means a Brit can move to that area for a new job without any extra income they generate being wiped out by crazy house prices. Currently, people don't move to more productive areas because if they move and make more money, they don't feel that money. They don't take home that money if it all goes away on housing. The housing in the area has to be more plentiful, has to be more cheap, and the connectivity has to be greater so that people choose to move to more productive jobs, make more money, and grow the economy. But of course, it's not just new railways that the area needs. The last government cancelled the road project that would turbocharge the area. For this zone to become Europe's Silicon Valley, it can't only be serviced by rail. People have to be able to drive between Oxford and Cambridge, and that means a new motorway needs to be built too. So, Chancellor, if you're serious about growth, it's time to back the motorist as well as the rail commuter. It's a lot to think about. I've been Tom Harwood for GB News, and we'll be doing more deep dives on announcements from the Chancellor in the future, so be sure to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel for much, much more.